After this season, Mick Cronin's got an interesting roster dilemma. What's he going to do after all these players leave? Does he go high school route? Does he go the transfer portal? What's he going to do? Let's talk about it on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. Welcome back, everydayers. And hey, today what we're talking about, the jam-packed show, UCLA basketball recruiting, and one they missed out on way back when, a few years ago. Then you got UCLA football disrespected again with another preseason poll. And softball and women's basketball have either an incoming recruit or somebody that's been standing out in international play. All in this episode of Locked On UCLA, so stay tuned start to finish. UCLA, though, men's hoops, to get started with Mick Cronin. He's on an interesting journey. He's kind of built this team for success this year, last year in the transfer portal. Each year is an evolving door. The culture that you're trying to build in college sports is tough, and especially with a roster as small as basketball's is, as small and as tough as it is to keep players in your lineup every year. They can go play pro after a year. They can go to the NBA. They can do whatever they want when you're playing on the men's side. So Mick Cronin has the unique challenge of compiling an intriguing roster, a good roster that can compete to his standards, which are different than other coaches' standards and what the UCLA's expectations are as a fan base, overall as a university. So what he's done the last few years has transitioned from getting a couple of 5-stars locally in the prep scene or in the local SoCal LA recruiting scene, whether it be Amari Bailey or a Dembona. You combine that with some super seniors, and UCLA had one of the best teams under Mick Cronin, a longtime veteran in Jalen Clark blossoming into a Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. And then that team was Pac-12 champions and arguably, I think, on the short list of winning a national championship. If they don't get hurt, I'll repeat it again, we don't hear about UConn. We don't hear about UConn if UCLA is not hurt during that tournament run. The next year, after retooling, UCLA went international. Didn't exactly work out. It was a hassle. We'll touch more on that a little bit later in this segment. Then Mick Cronin went very freshman heavy. Didn't exactly work out. And now he's gone exclusively, not exclusively, but mostly to the transfer portal, the quick fix 6, if you will. I think as LA Times Ben Bolch wrote about it. You have the likes of the transfers in Donovan Dent, what UCLA's tried to fill in the post this offseason. But UCLA is losing a lot of talent after this season. Not before, but after this season, just from sheer eligibility alone. This doesn't include who could go pro, who could go transfer out. This is exclusively who UCLA is losing eligibility-wise, who's on scholarship, if you will. You've got Donovan Dent utilizing his last year of eligibility at UCLA. You have Jamar Brown, a grad transfer utilizing the JUCO year because of the Diego Pavia rule at UCLA. You have Anthony Peoples Jr. utilizing a final graduate year. You have the likes of Stephen Jamerson II, the transfer from the University of San Diego. Tyler Bilodeau is going to be a senior. And then you've got Sky Clark, who will also be a senior. So that leaves UCLA with Trent Perry, Eric Daly Jr., Brandon Williams, Christian Ori, who was a preferred walk-on, Eric Freeney, Markel Alston, the late signee in this incoming class, and then Xavier Booker. So almost split down the line. Half your roster is basically gone after this year. Almost all significant contributors and good teams. You could look at Florida, who just won the national championship, lost a good portion of their value in their production. And now UCLA is going to lose this next year a lot. And that's what's expected. Year to year, you go in the transfer portal. You're not going to keep guys 4 years in one school as much nowadays, but 2 years, 2-year cycles, almost like a JUCO window, is what college basketball has turned into. What UCLA's intriguing thing for Mick Cronin is, I've been wanting him to go after 2026s. Go get after that top-notch 2026. And one of the top guys is off the board. Jason Crow Jr. just committed to Missouri. Although, after reading reports, seeing different outlets, it didn't seem like that game would have fit UCLA, even though he's a SoCal kid in UCLA's own backyard. And him committing to Missouri probably fits more with his skill set than what Mick Cronin wanted. And UCLA is probably never in with Jason Crow Jr., but just an example of a top-notch kid in this 2026 class, all right? and we're not seeing UCLA fully latch on to one of the top tier prospects just yet. But something that caught my eye was Jeff Goodman of the Field of 68 podcast. He's covered college basketball for a long time, the basketball circuit. And he posted this just the other day on July 20th, talking about how he went to the Peach Jams and all the big AAU circuits and what it looks like for the upcoming high school kids in their basically travel ball circuits. And this is what he posted. Part of his issue is with the class of 26 is as probably underwhelming as it gets in the 25 years as he's doing this. NBA teams need to trade away those 2027 picks. What does that mean? He's saying this upcoming class is underwhelming. Underwhelming. And Mick Cronin is already very strict in what he wants in a recruit. UCLA as a whole is strict when it comes to academics, the rigorous part of that. That's still a part of being a student athlete at UCLA, in addition to Mick Cronin's strict requirements to become a UCLA basketball player, be on the roster. And then just to be a contributor is a whole completely different thing to crack the starting lineup and not draw the ire of Mick Cronin from day to day. So my thing is, I was thinking, okay, where does UCLA go with this? You've got not a lot of links to some of these guys. Obviously, the Bruins have thrown out offers. There are players. I might throw one out there in a few moments. But if the 2026s aren't going to be it, maybe Cronin sticks with their transfer portal. And the best player for UCLA next season might be somebody who's playing for a different school this season. And that's generally the case from year to year. But if Jeff Goodman, who is a very loud, popular voice in college basketball, covered basketball for a long time, is saying the 2026s aren't that good, and UCLA is going to have a lot of roster spots with the guys graduating. That doesn't include if Trent Perry balls out and leaves or transfers. And that's not just speculation, that's just potential. Eric Daly Jr., pro or transfers. Brandon Williams maybe doesn't like it, transfer. These are just all, if you're looking at guys who could leave, that's what could happen. All right. That doesn't include the 6 guys who are out of eligibility, barring the NCAA saying something crazy like you get 10 years of eligibility. All right. So my thought, I looked at somebody and thought, all right, who could UCLA go after? And I was thinking, all right, there's a Cameron Holmes out there, somebody who fits a 4-star model, West Coast guy, Western region guy, I should say, from Arizona, 6'5", small forward. And you're like, okay, left-handed wing could potentially come to UCLA. Way back in as early as 2024 has said UCLA is his dream school. All right. Now the Bruins offered him in late June of, I believe, 2025, but he's about to have an official visit going to Oregon later. The Bruins did offer him about a month ago. And you're like, okay, this guy could be somebody who fits, 4-star. He's a physical guy, can shoot it a little bit, not exactly a ball-dominant guard. But then my thought is, well, one of the guys who could return next year is Eric Daly Jr. If somebody who's saying UCLA is his dream school, like Cameron Holmes from Arizona, Goodyear, Arizona, but he fits the same mold and model as an Eric Daly Jr., a little bit shorter, a left-handed wing that isn't ball dominant or a ball handler, according to Adam Finkelstein, the 24/7 sports recruiting and analyst, and his analysis about this guy. It's like, okay, that could be a repeat of Eric Daly Jr., which is fine, but do you want 2 of those guys on your roster at the same time? I don't know. So the thought is maybe the Bruins switch away and go continue in the transfer portal, which is what Mick Cronin's done and proven that he's going to do. But the portal haul this year is, you could argue, underwhelming outside of Donovan Dent. Booker's a big question mark. We have to see what Jamerson brings in the post, what Peoples Jr. brings in the post. Jamar Brown, I do believe in his value for UCLA, but some might have scoffed at the fact that he came from JUCO to UMKC to UCLA. That's a big leap from year to year into, all right, we need you to contribute for UCLA in the wing, either in a reserve or a key bench role. And Donovan Dent, yes, UCLA proved they can go pony up and share their money in the NIL perspective before the revenue sharing was official to UCLA and give them almost $4 million, get the best player. But UCLA needs a roster's worth of guys. And Cameron Holmes is somebody who said UCLA is his dream school. We've seen that with Deshaun Foster on the football side. There's plenty of players that still want to play for UCLA and say that's their dream school. All right. But UCLA is going to have to fill a point guard spot, another couple of wing spots potentially on the bench, and definitely fill the post. And one thing I thought was interesting to wrap up this first segment, if I'm saying this right, Ige Demir, the former Nigerian Turkish commit to UCLA, who couldn't get in because of UCLA's rigorous academic requirements, UCLA admissions wouldn't let him in. He's about 20 years old now. And why am I bringing this up? Somebody who committed to UCLA back in 2022. He's about 6'11", a 9'3" wingspan. He's been playing over in Turkey. And you're like, okay, what does that mean, Zach? Well, he just committed to Oregon to fortify their front line, which continues to show how tough a job it is for Mick Cronin when what's he going to get with NIL opportunities? What's he going to get with revenue sharing? And what is Cronin going to be able to do when you still have to deal with admissions? How much will he get of a portion of the revenue sharing to men's basketball to go get athletes and spend on guys in the portal or in high school recruiting? And then if you want to go after international guys, which I think he's just saying, forget this. Adamar is gone. Berke is gone. Zonka, who kind of started this all, was gone. Ige, you couldn't even get into school. Cronin sometimes has his hands tied. And that's why the portal, it might be an option. And if the 2026s aren't as good as, Jeff Goodman thinks, maybe that's why UCLA hasn't pounced on any yet. There could be guys that fit Mick Cronin's style and build, but there'll be a lot less veteran leadership, a lot of less D1 experience compared to when UCLA brought in Sky Clark, brought in Jamar Brown, Peoples Jr., Jamerson, Bilodeau, Daly Jr. And we'll talk more about that next on Locked On UCLA about football and what the experience they're bringing. But for UCLA in basketball, we'll talk more about that in future episodes in their recruiting. So we'll talk about that next. Football disrespected once again on the Big Ten preseason poll by Cleveland.com. I don't know why my voice got squeaky there. Who knows? It's what happens when everybody around you gets sick. Maybe I'm getting sick on the air. Next on Locked On UCLA. All right, it's time to talk to you about game time. Because if you ever decide the last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family, it's game day and you're like, wait, I want to be there. That's exactly what game time comes in. It's the easiest way to get last minute tickets without the stress. You know how many times I'm sitting there looking, all right, did these tickets drop? Are these tickets dropping with price-wise? And I did that just Friday when I was looking at Summer League. I was like, all right, I'm out of town for the weekend. Let's check this out. I got a couple hours to kill. Game time. And they got me in, got to see quite a few games, some good action out in Vegas to go watch the NBA Summer League. Or for me locally, I do this all the time, whether it be watching Dodger games, seeing local games. There's so many fun things you can do with game time. And buying the tickets fast and simple. You're looking and you're trying to compare all these prices. Game time comes in, always clutch. If you're like, oh, I just missed that lowest price ticket. Game time gives you another option there. And it takes the stress out of buying with the lowest price guarantee so you don't have to worry as much. It's the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball. And for me, I'm looking to go to a Dodger game of the upcoming homestand right now. And where do you think I'm going to look first? I'm going to look first with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So moving on to this second segment, we're talking UCLA football. All right. The Bruins are finding themselves heading to Big Ten Media Days. And that's not till July 24th. We'll talk about it. I'll talk a little bit more about what I expect and hope from Deshaun Foster and from the athletes representing UCLA and what people might think heading into it. But this is kind of pre-Big Ten Media Days. All right. You're going to see this. This is what's going on throughout the week. But this is what I'm talking about right now. We had our own Locked On poll. Spencer McLaughlin, you love him, you hate him. A lot of you UCLA fans really don't like him, although he's pretty funny at times on the Big Ten squad, which we'll be on later this week. The Big Ten preseason football rankings, according to Cleveland.com, because the Big Ten does not release an official rankings list. There's no, what the coaches and players all think or whatever it is. There is a Cleveland.com website that creates the preseason Big Ten rankings, which is the unofficial, official rankings list as to where the Big Ten teams are supposed to be. UCLA in our own Locked On rankings, according to our Locked On college football host, Spencer, put in UCLA as the 14th best team in the conference. And everybody's like, disrespect. Well, somehow in the Cleveland.com rankings, UCLA finished 15th, just ahead of Maryland, Northwestern, Purdue, but just after Rutgers and Michigan State, who both tied for the 13th best spot in the Big Ten. You have Wisconsin, Minnesota pretty low, Washington, USC, and then there's the top half of the conference, Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana, you keep going. All right, you keep on going. The continued disrespect for the football program this year is unique, right? UCLA is in another opportune year where they can prove the doubters wrong. And I think heading into the end of last year, UCLA, when they got in the heater, truly proved the doubters wrong. When they beat Iowa, when they started the season as bad as they did, and found a way to compete down the stretch, and were one win away against either Washington or USC from making a bowl game. And I think that was a far cry from what we thought UCLA could have done after beating Hawaii in that opening game. After getting beat down by Indiana, it still seems like everybody's like, wait a minute. UCLA went out and they got Nico. And I know I was against the idea, okay, Nico and the potential drama surrounding him could create an interesting culture this year for Deshaun Foster after they already went out and got Joey Aguilar in the transfer portal. Whatever, he's there. He's very talented, and we know what he can bring to the table. And Nico, for all reports, is a good kid. So you bring in a talented quarterback. You bring in talent in the running back room, in the high school recruiting, guys off redshirt returning, and the transfer portal on Javian Thomas. UCLA, in the receiver room, plenty of talent. And maybe, just maybe, Caden Robinson might actually play for UCLA. Unlikely, unless he wins his battle in court, but the Bruins have already got returning talent in the receiving room. Now, if they can develop with a new O-line coach and what they've brought in and what they've returned on the O-line, UCLA could be respectable on offense with the new offensive coordinator. So regardless, the Bruins should improve on offense with a new concept, arguably a better quarterback, hopefully a little bit better and more improved line play, and just as quality options in the skill positions that most of the Big Ten already has, all right? I'm not going to compare Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State, to UCLA's receivers, but I think the majority of the Big Ten, UCLA can compete with an overall room in depth in the receiver position if they're healthy, and especially if they can bring in Caden Robinson. Now, I wonder how they can go in the tight end room and grow after losing Maliki Matsuval, but there's potential there with what's returning from injury and what they have this year. Defensively, they're going to take a big loss. You lost more talent on the D-line, a lot in the linebacker room, but you bring in an overhaul of talent, an overhaul of coaching other than the D coordinator, and you expect the Bruins to go out and compete defensively. Now, will they be worse than a year ago? Yes, you have to assume for Kaika Malloy coming in and losing a couple of NFL draftees in the linebacking room, they're going to be worse. But they have a lot more help in the secondary, maybe a more developed D-line and some players returning from injury on the D-line as well. Mixed in with one transfer, you see John Vaughn's representing UCLA. He's a linebacker. You hope that UCLA develops some players and we get some unsung heroes like Carson Schlesinger last year from unknown to draft pick in the second round of the NFL draft. Like, come on. Hopefully UCLA has a couple more waiting in the wings, but that's a little hard to project at the moment. I still think with Kaika Malloy, what he did year one, that is projectable to year two. Maybe not as dominant as they were in the run game. Maybe not as bad as they were in the pass rush. But I think in year two, with the passion and what he wants to deploy this upcoming year, UCLA should be just as good and respectable defensively. Not as good statistically, but should just get the job done. All right. This is a year where the offense is going to have to carry UCLA. It just has to. But putting them at 15th in an 18-team Big Ten, I mean, come on. We know that back half of the schedule, the last 3 to 4 games, are all games that were toss-ups last year. USC, Washington, Nebraska, and UCLA won in Nebraska. And they got the same coach and largely the same assortment of the same players, including Dylan Raiola at quarterback. USC, same quarterback. Washington, running out the same quarterback. So if the Bruins can go 2-1 compared to those games that they went 1-2 last year, Nebraska, USC, Washington, and all of a sudden you're going to go from lowest rated big name Big Ten school, right? Because if you look at it, nobody's respecting Maryland. Nobody's respecting Northwestern. Nobody's respecting Purdue. That just never happened. So you're saying UCLA is probably the biggest name brand, or the lowest rated of the biggest name brands in the Big Ten. All right, that includes football, basketball, UCLA in the LA market. They're not as respected. But Deshaun Foster's ready to come out there and make a statement. Make a statement with what this team is going to do this year. And in special teams, they've slowly improved in the return game, the punt return game, the kick return game. If Roderick Pleasant goes out there and can break off a couple of runs, if Mikey Matthews can go out there and solidify a punt return game that's almost been non-existent, because they haven't had any returns. They were just fair catching everything last couple of years. Kicking game, hopefully a bit more solid as the year progresses. But we'll see how that all works itself out. UCLA is the 15th best team behind Michigan State. Well, the Bruins will play them. And Rutgers? The Bruins just beat at Rutgers last year? Come on. Now, hopefully UCLA backs up this smack talk and can beat Michigan State in East Lansing when they have that 9 a.m. local or the 9 a.m. body clock kickoff time in a few weeks of the season. But the Bruins certainly have winnable games where they're well within the middle of the pack of the Big Ten and hopefully surging forward projection-wise in the future by the time the season ends. Transfer-wise, flip-wise, when it comes to signing day, heading into the 2027s, UCLA can be one of those programs that surges forward and may no longer be stuck as the 15th best team in the conference year in and year out. All right. Leave that for the Rutgers. Leave that for the Michigan States. I mean, Michigan State has been good in years past, but leave that for the Michigan States, the Marylands, and the Purdues of the world. And I know Purdue just hired UNLV's head coach. So Barry Odom could be intriguing. But UCLA's got to do their own work too. Not get upset by UNLV. Go beat Utah and use that momentum. Get an upset or two in Big Ten play. You might have an unbeaten record when you play Penn State in early October with what could be a primetime window at the Rose Bowl. Show up and actually upset everybody. Show everybody that James Franklin is the fraud that everybody's talking about, even though they're the Big Ten favorites according to the media poll. I don't know. Go shock somebody. And the Bruins don't have to do a lot to shock the doubters, but they could be a program well within a reaching distance of surging forward to be a respectable program in the next year or two. Because right now they're not respected. We like them, but they're just not respected right now by everybody else. We'll talk more about that as the year progresses, as Big Ten Media Days progresses. And speaking of the respect factor, it's because people still think of Deshaun Foster as we're in LA. I'll talk about that in the next Locked On UCLA episode. Next, we'll wrap up with who's coming in as a transfer for softball and who has been dominating lately on the international circuit for women's basketball. All that more. We're Locked On UCLA. All right, ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO. And Monarch, you're like right there. You can give full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money, it's not just another budgeting app. It's complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. So for me, I'm thinking, wait. I download multiple apps, and you have all these apps to do different things, right? You're stuck like, oh, I have this app for this thing, this app for that thing. With Monarch Money, it puts it all into one place. So instead of having to balance between what's my budgeting app, what's my app that helps me build my wealth, you do that all together with Monarch Money. And if you're like, for me, I'm spending so much on eating out, let's scale back on that and budget for that if that's the case for a busy week. Monarch Money helps me do that and then build my wealth and look forward for that. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Cruising on into this last segment of Locked On UCLA, where we're going to talk about some UCLA women's basketball and UCLA softball. Where am I going with this? We're going to start first with an incoming freshman for UCLA, all right? Lena Bilic, who's kind of an unknown entity for what UCLA is expecting this upcoming season. Why do I say that? The Bruins had a good international recruit step up a lot last year. That was Lena Artisalo. But every incoming freshman who would be a sophomore this year for Corey Close's team all left. They all transferred out. That included Janiah Barker. It's London Jones. It's veterans transferring out the freshmen. So UCLA needs a lot of depth. Well, the Bruins won a key transfer recruiting battle getting Gian Neepkins. Charlize Ledger-Walker, with the extended eligibility because of her injury, she's huge. And then you've got the incoming recruits of Sienna Betts, and then you have also Lena Bilic. And Bilic has been going off in international play. It's not going to be a big segment about her. This is her last numbers posted by the UCLA Women's Basketball Twitter X page in what she did in international play. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. Let's remind you, this is over a week ago when a lot of the UCLA women's players have been playing internationally. But Bilic, I think, is important because I wonder what she's going to provide for UCLA. Is she that player that plays for Kiki Rice coming off the bench, right? Like Lena Bilic did when Rice was injured to start the season. Bilic, 40 points in her game for Croatia against Lithuania in a third-place international battle, helped Croatia to promotion in the next offseason. 41, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, 41 points on 15 of 29 shooting. That's better than 50%, was 6 of 12 from downtown. So she showcased range at an efficient clip, could make shots at a very efficient clip inside the arc, showcasing the scoring abilities, the distributing abilities, getting some rebounds, while also dominating defensively. And sometimes, yes, the best players you're going to face are going to be in the women's college game at her level outside of this senior level of international play. But right now, Bilic, that is huge. That is absolutely huge with what she's doing overseas, out of the country for her international play. 41 points, that's a bucket getter right there. Now, is she going to do that year one at UCLA? I truly don't think so, because there's so many mouths to feed and so many players like a Lauren Betts, like a Ledger Walker, like a Neepkins who can shoot it real well. Bilic is one of those who might start off a little quiet, but could turn into something down the road. And that's the fun thing about women's college basketball. As long as you avoid these players hitting the portal, and if Bilic develops, she could be a fun player rising into her sophomore year and junior year if you're projecting going crazy forward like I am right now. But what she's done in the international play, you could argue about what the competition is. I'm not going to go there. You see Bilic putting up numbers, and it takes a very special player to put up numbers like that as a number one option for your, or number one, number two option in your international team, international club. Huge for Bilic. So just something to look out for heading into this next season for UCLA and company, where they're preseason 1, 2, 3 in the country. They're going to give that love to UConn, to South Carolina. Don't forget about UCLA. Don't forget about us. Now, let's go back to the Diamond and talk about UCLA softball, who announced just the other day that they have a couple of transfers coming in. It is Sojin Berry and Bryn Nally. Bryn Nally going to Long Beach State. Her couple of biggest outings as a right-handed pitcher was one of the leaders on the team in innings pitched, in strikeouts. One of her biggest outings came in an extra inning battle Long Beach had with Oklahoma earlier in the year, where she pitched 2 2/3 scoreless against the Oklahoma Sooners. So that's an interesting transition for somebody coming from the Big West to UCLA, where they're hurting in the circle, right? UCLA lost some big-time contributors, and you're already seeing Megan Grant going to play basketball this year, right? She's on the roster, speaking of incoming players for UCLA in the Hoop Squad. You're like, okay, well, Bryn Nally comes in 6-6, 3.5, about 3.22 ERA, a 1.47 whip, 74 innings with 12 starts, 9 relief appearances, 49 strikeouts, and a 245 batting average against. Sometimes you worry about what the translation is and how you can transfer from middle of the pack, mid-major conference opponents to UCLA playing the Big Ten. But UCLA, for the most part, was able to dominate the Big Ten, and you hope that they can be a champion in the Big Ten year in and year out, like they almost always were at the Pac-12. That's the hope and the expectation this year and for years to come in UCLA in their new conference, and to always compete in the Women's College World Series. So the Bruins bring in another player to help on the pitching staff, right? You're wondering, okay, what's going next? Because Caitlin Terry's gone. Taylor Tinsley, you can't just use her the entire year and expect her to throw 100% of your innings. So that's where Nally comes in. I wonder if she'll be the number 2, if she can work her way and become the number 1. I don't expect that at the moment, but that's where UCLA is going with. And mind you, for Nally, real quickly, she was a high school teammate of UCLA Bruin, Kanaya Bragg. They played at Pacifica, were CIF Southern Section champions. So Nally has a good high school resume, some good outings, including a complete game victory against Utah, who UCLA competed with at the end of their Pac-12 reign for Pac-12 supremacy. So some good results. Can that translate into Big Ten and tournament success? We'll find out. The other transfer is Berry from Iowa. Berry, who has 2 years left, is a junior infielder and started 88 games for Iowa. Hit .330, had a .395 on base, .533 slugging, and was the leader for the Hawkeyes in RBIs as a sophomore and as a freshman. Had 10 home runs, 18 doubles, 4 triples over couple of seasons at Iowa. So not a big home run basher, won't bring into the Bruin Bombers, but can hit extra bases, can drive in runs, and is a good on-base percentage. All right. Now with UCLA losing Jessica Clements, you wonder, okay, you get a Big Ten transfer, you take from Iowa, and why does that name Barry make so much sense? Well, according to the UCLA release, last year she went .335 with the batting average, led her team in home runs with 9, and actually hit 2 home runs against UCLA in March when Iowa upset UCLA. And you're like, wait, why is UCLA losing to Iowa, the 6th place team in the Big Ten? Because their best player hit 2 bombs against the Bruins in that weird shortened Iowa series the Bruins had earlier this year. All right? And what does UCLA do? Like most of these top dogs do across the sport, they go pluck your best player and put him on your roster. So one day she hits 2 bombs to upset UCLA. Next, she's going to be a key contributor to a UCLA lineup that's losing Caitlin Terry, one of their outfielders. That's losing Jessica Clements, a leadoff on-base machine, as one of the outfielders. Now, an infielder, and UCLA, we'll see if she moves to short. If she goes, I wonder where exactly she'll be put in, because UCLA was a bit of a revolving door on the infield a little bit last year. But for right now, when it comes to a lineup perspective, you once again give depth to the lineup. You give some more depth in the circle. And that's where UCLA is starting to need in the portal. And for Coach Kelly Inouye Perez, she's found her way to get some talents and keep this team very competitive. Is it national championship good? We'll find out, because Texas Tech is spending millions on their best pitcher. They've got Texas, who's finally broken down the door and got to the Women's College World Series final. Oklahoma finally didn't win their 10th billionth championship in a row. So it's open, but the Bruins have to be able to dominate and win in the Big Ten. They've got some good transfers, including stealing from their own Big Ten rival, Iowa, and bringing somebody up from the Big West in Long Beach State and Bryn Nally. We'll see how that works out. But those are things to look out for in the offseason and moving forward for UCLA softball. Recent signees in the transfer portal. So Coach Inouye Perez, she's not going down quietly. She's just had to wait to find her right players. But that's going to do it for us here on Locked On UCLA. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8-clap time. We're going to talk Big Ten Media Days. We're going to react to Big Ten Media Days. So it'll be Big Ten squads. And if there's any more incoming transfers and more things to talk about, stay tuned on Locked On UCLA. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8-clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.